In the year 23 BC, Rome stood on the precipice of uncertainty. The man who had brought peace to the empire, Augustus, the first citizen, was struck down by a sudden and grave illness. It was a moment of crisis. With his life hanging by a thread, Augustus was forced to confront the reality of mortality. For a ruler whose genius lay in managing power subtly, this illness raised urgent questions. Who would succeed him? How could he ensure the continuity of his authority without plunging Rome back into chaos? This tale is one of political foresight, alliances, betrayals, and delicate maneuvers, as Augustus used the threat of death to reorganize his powers. His decisions in this moment shaped the course of the empire for centuries, laying the groundwork for the Principate that followed him. This is not just a story of personal struggle but of empire-shaping strategy, where life and death hung in the balance, not just for Augustus but for Rome itself. Augustus's health crisis, the calm before the storm, the mysterious illness in 23 BC, Augustus, then 40 years old, was stricken with a sudden illness. Sources describe symptoms including severe fevers, a weakening of the body, and moments when it seemed the ruler might slip away forever. Some Roman historians suggest it was a respiratory disease or complications of long-term stress, while others speculate about food poisoning or even political sabotage. Regardless of the cause, Augustus was bedridden for weeks, and his condition deteriorated rapidly. For the first time, the man who seemed untouchable was brought low by the vulnerabilities of the human body. Panic in Rome, which had finally experienced peace after decades of civil wars, now faced a terrifying question: what happens if Augustus dies? No clear successor. Despite holding vast personal power, Augustus had not named a clear heir. Rome was still sensitive to the idea of dynastic succession, fearing a return to monarchy. There was no son waiting in the wings to step into his sandals, and his political allies could only guess at his intentions. Fear of civil war. Many feared that Augustus's death would plunge Rome back into civil conflict. Would his trusted generals fight for control of the empire? Would political factions within the Senate tear the city apart? Augustus's illness revealed the fragile state of the carefully maintained peace he had built. Augustus's power structure before 23 BC. The first settlement of 27 BC. In 27 BC, Augustus had orchestrated the first settlement, where he restored power to the Senate and Roman people while retaining control over key military provinces. The Senate granted him the title Princeps, first citizen, and imperator, commander, giving him supreme authority while maintaining the illusion of a republic. However, his power still rested on informal alliances and personal loyalty. With his health failing, Augustus realized that the system he had built was not yet strong enough to survive his absence. Changes were necessary. A brush with death, reorganizing power amid crisis, transferring powers to trusted allies. As Augustus's condition worsened, he summoned his closest allies and family members. He knew that he could no longer keep all authority concentrated in his hands. It needed to be distributed among reliable individuals to prevent chaos. Two figures played central roles in this reorganization: Marcus Agrippa, Augustus's closest friend and most capable general. Agrippa had been instrumental in securing Augustus's victories during the civil wars and was entrusted with critical military power. Augustus granted him imperium, the legal authority to command armies, allowing Agrippa to maintain control over crucial provinces if Augustus did not survive. Gaius Maecenas, a trusted advisor and patron of the arts, Maecenas helped manage Augustus's political relationships within the Senate and the Roman elite. He acted as a diplomatic bridge between the ruler and the factions that could have opposed Augustus's reforms. The gift of Imperium Maius. One of the most significant changes Augustus made during his illness was granting Imperium Maius, greater military command, over the provinces to key figures, including Agrippa. This step ensured that if Augustus died, Rome's military might would remain in trusted hands, preventing opportunistic generals from seizing control. Augustus resigns the consulship in a surprising and highly symbolic gesture. Augustus resigned the consulship, the most prestigious elected office in Rome. This move shocked the Senate, but it was a stroke of political genius. By resigning, Augustus signaled that his power did not rely on holding a formal office but came from his status as princeps and imperator. In place of the consulship, he accepted two key privileges: tribunician power. This gave him the authority to propose laws, veto legislation, and intervene in political affairs. Maius imperium. Augustus retained ultimate command over military provinces, giving him control over the legions. These changes allowed Augustus to maintain supreme power without holding a formal title that might provoke resentment from Republican-minded senators. It also laid the groundwork for a new system of governance, the Principate, which would define the Roman Empire for centuries. The question of succession, a delicate balance. One of the most pressing issues during Augustus's illness was the question of succession. Although he had no biological son, Augustus had several candidates in mind, including his stepson Tiberius and his nephew Marcellus. However, naming an heir outright was dangerous. It risked reviving fears of monarchy and alienating key allies. The death of Marcellus. Tragically, Marcellus, who was widely seen as Augustus's favored successor, died unexpectedly during the same year. His death further complicated the succession plans, forcing Augustus to rely more heavily on Agrippa and Tiberius in the short term. Augustus recovers. A new political order emerges. Augustus's return to power against all odds. Augustus recovered from his illness. However, the experience had changed him profoundly. He emerged with a new understanding of the fragility of power and the need for a clear system of governance. The changes he implemented during his illness, redistributing power, resigning the consulship, and clarifying succession, remained in place, shaping the future of Rome. A lasting legacy. The Second Settlement. The political reforms Augustus made in 23 BC became known as the Second Settlement. This new arrangement ensured that power would flow through the office of the princeps, rather than traditional republican positions. Augustus had created a system that allowed him to rule as emperor in all but name. Conclusion. The triumph of strategy over illness. The events of 23 BC reveal the brilliance of Augustus as a ruler. Faced with the prospect of death, he carefully reorganized his powers to ensure stability in Rome. His actions were not just about survival, they were about creating a lasting political order that would outlive him. Through a combination of humility, foresight, and cunning, Augustus emerged from his illness stronger than ever. He had transformed Rome, not by seizing power but by relinquishing formal offices while maintaining control through influence. The Principate, born in these moments of crisis, would endure for centuries, shaping the destiny of the Roman Empire.